Welcome to the Connect with BMC Helix ITSM and Remedy webinar. During today's webinar, you're able to ask questions of our panelists. Today's webinar broadcast and any Q&A will be posted to the YouTube channel a week from today's broadcast. This topic is best practices for deploying DWP Catalog, and we have Ashish and Daniel that will take us through this content. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Greg. So, hi everyone, I'm Ashish and I'm working in BMC as a Staff Specialist Technical Support Analyst. So in today's webinar, we are going to cover the best practices for deploying DWP Catalog. In this webinar, we are going to cover these topics. So first of all, we'll go at the overview of DWP Catalog. Then we will look into the installation upgrade process. Once it is done, we will go with the post-install configuration steps. Once the installation part is done, we will look into the integration with RSSO and SSL stuff. We'll cover some use cases as the troubleshooting steps. Then we have some references for documents and which will give you more information regarding the DWP catalog. So let's start our presentation. So first of all, let's have a look at the overview. So what is BMC Digital Workplace Catalog? So we can consider BMC Digital Workplace Catalog as an application that will integrate with the external fulfillment systems. So how it integrates is we will be connecting to the external system using the service connectors. So we have connectors defined in the DWP Advanced Catalog, and using connectors we can query or use the services from other systems. As in the diagram, you can see we can integrate catalog with Flexera, Zen Mobile, then Helix ITSM and HR case management, the DWP, Remedy, and also we can connect with the cloud applications like AWS, Azure. So basically, once the connection is established, once we integrate catalog with these external systems, we can use the services that are defined in those in those applications into the digital workplace catalog, which can be used by the end users to create requests, and basically they will consume those services using catalog and DWP as the front end. Basically, it will enable communication between catalog and fulfillment systems. So this gives us a leverage to use all the external services and that are defined in those particular applications. Also in catalog, we can apply our logic, we can define the workflows or create services and apply the workflows, so that and basically we can design the services and we can use those services as well into the end application. So let's have a look at the installation process. So the installation process comes in various steps. So we will be going into these steps in more details. So what basically we have to consider during the installation is, first of all, there are certain prerequisites that needs to be performed before installation. So this DWP Catalog installation is just a Linux installer and it has a silent installer. So to perform the setup, we have to do some prerequisites. Then once the prerequisites are done, we'll go ahead and install the DWP Catalog on primary server. We will perform the post-install configuration once the installation is done. After the post-install steps, so post-install will basically have the tenant part covered. So whenever you perform the installation, it will create the app database. So basically it will create or load the AR server into catalog and so on. So all the other services that are associated with the catalog and create the app database. Then in the post-install configuration, we will create a tenant database and it will load the tenants. Once the post-install is done, we will move ahead with the RSSO integration. So RSSO is again is a Remedy single sign-on. We can integrate RSSO with DWP Catalog, and that same RSSO can be used with various other applications like ITSM, DWP, and so on, so that we can get a full end-to-end integration with RSSO. And it will be aligned with all the other applications as well. Mainly in the authentication area. Once the RSSO integration is done, we will take a look at the secondary server installation and the configuration. So the secondary server installation and primary server installation and configuration will remain the same. There are some minor differences which we are going to look into more details. So in the diagram, as you can see, we have a common database server for all the DWP Catalog applications. So we have a primary server for catalog and some secondary servers defined for high cluster, and those will be pointed to the same database. So database remains the same and the servers can be integrated, various servers can be integrated with the same database. So it's the same architecture as we see in the AR server, the high cluster architecture. So let's deep dive into the installation prerequisites. So before installing, as I mentioned, that we have to perform some prerequisites. So first of all, we need to verify the system components. System components in the sense, we have to make sure that Java is installed on the Linux system. We would recommend to install JDK 11 starting 19.11 onwards. The other things that Linux system administrator can do is he needs to install the Linux system dependencies, then create the options.txt file. So this options.txt file will come with the installer once you unzip the tar file. The installer tar, you will be able to see various files that are unzipped, and one of them will be options.txt. So installer will read the output from these options.txt files. So make sure you have all the correct options filled into the options.txt file. And that will contain various information like user details, server details, and database details. If a user wants to perform the installation with the non-root user, then Linux administrator should provide permissions to the folders and file systems, so that non-root user will be able to access those files and he can be able to install the catalog on that particular server. So basically, for non-root user, the Linux administrator should provide permission to Java directory, then etc directory, and OPD directory. So this is all documented. You just need to provide those permissions to make the installation successful for non-root user. One thing that needs to be performed by DBA is they will need to create database table spaces on the database side. So basically, you can use SQL or Oracle as a database for catalog, and you have to follow some prerequisite steps, like you have to create the app database before installation, and you need to create the tenant database. Starting 19.11, we have provided database dump. So you have to load the database dump first in order to take the prerequisite or take the data from the existing dump. We'll cover this database creation details in the demo part, so that will give you more idea. So once the prerequisite is done, so I will consider prerequisite is just check the Java. If Java is correctly installed, make sure that database exists, install the dependencies, create options.txt file, and if you want to set up as non-root user, just add permissions to some of the file systems, and these are the prerequisites that needs to be performed basically. Once the prerequisite is done, we will go ahead and install the DWP Catalog. So to install the DWP Catalog, you have to go to the directory where installation files will be extracted. So you can download the installer from the EPD site, and you can see the name will be install digital workplace version .tar. So unzip that tar in particular directory, and once you unzip that, you will be able to see various files that will be unzipped from that installer. So one of them will be options.txt, as I mentioned in the last slide. You have to fill in all the details in options.txt file, and just make sure all the entries are correct. So these options.txt will be used for the installation. So once you perform these prerequisites, you can just run the installer using this command /install digitalworkplace.sh-o options.txt. You can also use advanced options.txt file that is present along with the installer if you want to change the port or installation directory and so on. So once you run the installer, you will be able to see the update on the screen. There will be various steps performed by the installer, or you can also have a look at the log files. It will be in the temporary directory, temp directory basically, and the name will be DWP install logs. So you can just simultaneously see the activities that are going on in the log files. If in case there are any errors, you need to rectify the errors and drop the database, recreate the database, and you can start the installation again. Once the installation is finished, you will be able to see the successful installation message on the screen, and with this the installation of DWP Catalog will be done. So this was related to the installation of Catalog on a single server. If you want to set up multiple servers for high availability or cluster, you can just create a server group. So you need to perform the installation steps on secondary servers. The only difference here is in the prerequisite you have to check the Java. You don't need to create the database, tenant table and app database. So it will be pointing to the same database as in primary. Make sure in the prerequisite you have Java correctly set up. You have dependencies already loaded in that system. And in the options.txt file, you have to change the parameter BMC DWP server role to slave. That way, installer will be able to detect that this is the secondary server, and rest of the details will remain the same. The process of installation will be the same. Run the command /install digitalworkplace.sh-o options.txt. Again, you will be able to see the installation progress in the same UI, and you can also have a look at the log files. If in case there is any issues, rectify the errors and move ahead with the installation. So the same process will go for the other servers as well in the server group. So let's start with the installation. So as part of installation, we have to perform some prerequisites. But before that, we need to copy the installation files and Java into our installation box or the server. So I have downloaded the DWP Catalog installer and Java on one of my installer directory. So let's list it. And you can see this is the Digital Workplace Catalog fresh installer and the JDK. I've extracted the JDK and the catalog installer, so you can see the JDK has been extracted in the same directory, as well as the Digital Workplace Catalog extract will also you will be able to see these files are extracted as a part of the installer. So once the JDK is done, so that is one of the part of the prerequisite, you have to set up the database. I have already performed the database setup. I have copied the installer dump file. So the database dump file from the BMC download EPD site, and I have dumped it into the data dump directory. Also, I have ran the commands on the catalog or the Oracle server. So basically, this machine itself has the Oracle. So I basically set up the Oracle on the same machine and ran the commands for the Oracle and set up the database. So I have already set up the app database and tenant database. Once this is done, you have to edit the options.txt. I have already edited the options.txt. So let me show you the parameters that we need to enter into the options.txt. So as you can see, the DWP server role is master as it is the primary server. And then I have provided the Java installation path, then mid-tier password, the server name with domain, and these are all the database details that I have to insert, and it will create, and we have created DWP Catalog database tablespace. These all database entries you have to put in as per the commands that you ran under the database. So this is for the primary server. I have set up the DWP server role as master. If I go to one of my server, which will be as part of secondary server, so as you can see, the DWP server role will change to slave, and rest of the database details will remain the same. So now let's move on with the primary server installation, and let's run the installer. So to run the installation, we need to run that /install digitalworkplace.sh, and we have to give the options.txt into the command line as a parameter. So you can just validate your options.txt file. I will say no. If you want, you can just click on yes. Enter. So just follow the commands that has been provided as an option. Click Y. So you can see the installation has been started. So we will wait for the installation to finish. So as you can see, we received the successful installation message. In case you receive any error, it will be displayed and the installation won't be successful. In that case, you have to check the install logs in the temp directory, rectify the errors. You have to uninstall the DWP Catalog, drop and recreate the database, and again perform the installation. So the installation is successful. You can just navigate to this site to see if you are able to log into the login page of DWP Catalog. That concludes the installation demo. Okay, so as you have seen, we have performed the installation of DWP Catalog. So once the installation is done, we will move ahead with the post installation steps. So in the post installation, first of all, we need to check. So once you have done the installation, you will just move to that OPT BMC Digital Workplace, and you will be able to see various files and folders that will be created. Now moving ahead to the post installation, you need to first check if the JQ command line JSON processor is accessible in the system. So just run the JQ command and you will be able to see an output. So if you see any errors in the output, you have to copy this JQ from the install files, the files which will be extracted with the installer. Just go to install files directory, copy the JQ into the user bin and change the permission to read write, so that user will be able to access the JQ from the user bin location. Just hit the command again and see if you are able to successfully run the command. So basically JQ is the command line JSON processor. To load the tenant data, post install script will use this JQ command to read the or to create the output from the text files. Once the JQ is accessible, you can go to the digital workplace SB and post install SB directory, and you will be able to see the post_install.sh script. So once you see this script, you can just run the post install tenant script. The command will be post install.sh create tenant. So once you run the script, you will be able to see various output, various questions that will be asked. So you need to provide all the answers to those, like it will be a DWP Catalog user password and the tenant database administrator password and the domain name. So just fill in all the information and the post install script will start and you will be able to see the successful message. So once the post install script is done, you will be able to see the URL will be displayed and the default user will also be displayed on the screen. So just check by logging into that URL if you are able to access the DWP Catalog UI on the browser. We will cover this post install script in the demo portion. So once the post install is done, we will run the user group sync. So basically user group sync will sync all the users from ITSM into the DWP Catalog. So after the post install, if you check the user form in DWP Catalog, you need to log into DWP Catalog AR server, go to the user form and check the users that are created. So you'll be able to see only one user as of now, that is HANA admin, which is shipped in with the installer. Now when you run the user group sync, it will bring all the ITSM users from the people form into the DWP Catalog AR server. So basically user group sync is to sync all the users from ITSM to DWP Catalog. We will see the user group sync in more details in the demo. So once the user group sync is done, we need to configure the FTS. So the configuration of FTS remains the same as in AR server, as the DWP Catalog has its own AR server, and most of the things with the AR server remains the same in DWP Catalog. We will check the configuration of FTS as well in more details in next slides. Once the FTS configuration is done, you can configure settings for remote action. So basically remote action is will be used to integrate ITSM with the DWP catalog so that we can have a communication with ITSM approval engine and other workflows in the catalog. So this remote action is basically, we can say it is a DWP catalog integration patch. You need to install this integration patch on the ITSM server, and that will load various SP forms, and you have to perform the integration steps from some of the forms. So those forms will be SP, local approval configuration, remote approval configuration, and you can test if the connection between the ITSM and DWP catalog is successful. Once it is successful, we'll be able to integrate or use approvals with the from the ITSM side, and also the workflows and forms from the ITSM side into the DWP catalog. So let's have a look at the DWP catalog post-install configurations. So once we perform the installation, we can navigate to the URL that was provided as a part of installation, successful installation, and we'll just check if we are able to log into that URL or connect to that URL. So you will be able to see that we get the login page when we hit that URL. But as of now, we don't have a user to log into this catalog server. So we will be running the post-install tenant script to load the successful user. So basically tenant script will create a default user. So before we run the tenant script, let's check if the JQ command line parser is available, and you can see the JQ is successful. If in case you are able to see errors while running the JQ command, you can copy this JQ from AR tools, that means the installation directory, the installer where you have extracted the installer install files, into the user bin location and give all the permissions, read, write, execute access to the JQ. So once the JQ command is successful, we will go to the installation directory. So basically installer will by default, you can see the installer will be installed by default in the OPT BMC digital workplace. We can list, and you can see this directory structure which was a part of installation. So let's navigate to the SP directory, and inside SP you will be able to see the post install.sh. So you have to run this post install and create _tenant. It will ask you for various information, so just provide all these information. So DWP admin login name is demo, password is password. As you have Oracle, you need to go give tenant database administrator username, so that is DWPC tenant admin. This was a part of the SQL script that we ran for tenant earlier. Domain name, you have to give the server domain name. You have to give the server host name. Then you have to give the tenant database username. This is again DWPC tenant admin, and it was a part of the script. And password is password. So as you can see, the tenant creation is in progress. So let's wait for tenant creation completion. So as you can see, the post install tenant script is successful, and you can just scroll up and see the tenant user that has been created. So this is the tenant user. So let's try to log in with this tenant user on the DWP. The default password for this is PASSW0RD exclamation. You can see you are able to log into the DWP catalog. So that concludes the post install tenant creation script. To run the user group sync, we need to navigate to the digital workplace directory, and in the directory you need to go to the AR tools. So this is the files in AR tools, and we are able to see the user group sync.sh script. So we'll be running the user group sync from this particular location. But before you run the user group sync, you need to make sure few settings are enabled on the DWP Catalog AR server. So we need to log into the DWP Catalog AR server. You can configure mid-tier to log into the Catalog AR server, or you can directly log into the Catalog AR server using user tool. So I've logged into the Catalog AR server using the user tool and went to the AR system administration console and server information page, and if you see this cross-reference blank password, so this setting should be enabled in order to run the user group sync. Once you enable the settings using the app user, you need to restart the DWP Catalog server. So once you restart the DWP Catalog server, you need to come back to the AR tools directory and you have to run the user group sync. So this is the user group sync that command that we will be running. So I've copied this command from the documentation and updated the parameters. So basically it will take the ITSM server from where we are importing the users, its username, password, the port, along with the DWP Catalog AR server, along with its username and password. So the default password for HANA admin will be this, the one that I have highlighted. Then give the port, and the activities will be recorded in this sbusersync.log. If you are using SSL, or if you want to schedule this user sync, you will need to update the command. So this is all documented. So as of now, we are just trying to sync the users from ITSM to DWP Catalog. So I will run the command. So I've run that earlier, so I think it will be very quick. Okay, so as you can see, the command is implemented. We can view the status of this, or we can view the output of this command in this particular file. So let's go to this file, and as you can see, this is the output that we are able to see. So you will be able to see the status that how many records it took from the people form and how many records are imported. So this is how you can run the user group sync. So to integrate Digital Workplace Catalog with ITSM, you have to install the DWP Catalog 2002 for ITSM patch on the ITSM server. So we have a deployment package for this, which needs to be run through the deployment management console that will install all the necessary workflows, forms, and so on the ITSM server. So as you can see, I have deployed the DWP Catalog 22 for ITSM patch 1, and if I click on view, I will be able to see that various components have been deployed on the ITSM server for DWP Catalog. So once this is deployed, you will be able to see the remote action folder will be created into the AR system directory, and it will have the remote action.batch, and that batch file will be used to process the records from ITSM to DWP Catalog. So once the patch installation is successful, you have to perform various steps, like you have to first go to the SB local approval configuration form, and I'm already configured. So this form will hold the information of the local form, like the ITSM server. So localhost, you can give the localhost the port of the ITSM server, the username and password for ITSM, and the external processful path is the remote action.batch, and this path will hold the address of this remote action.batch on the AR server. So you have to give the absolute path of this batch file into this external processful path. There is one more form, that is SB remote approval configuration. So here you will need to provide all the information related to the DWP Catalog server. So basically this form is on ITSM, and we will need to provide the catalog server details in order to integrate with ITSM. So as you can see, I have provided the DWP Catalog server on which I have performed the installation just now, the username and password, and the login endpoint and signal endpoint, and the port of the DWP Catalog. So once this is done, we can go to the AR system administration console, and we can go to centralized configuration, and you can navigate to com.bmc.itsm.sbe, and you will be able to see these parameters. So just fill in all the details like SB compatible version, domain, tenant password is the same that we have used for HANA admin, the tenant user, and the SB URL. So once this information is provided, we can go to SB connection config form. This is a display only form, and it will automatically display all the details for SB URL, tenant, user, and password. To test the connection, you will need to click on test connection. If it shows success, then the connection is established between DWP Catalog and ITSM. If there is a failure, you have to check all the parameters in these forms as remote approval configuration, local approval configuration, and make sure the entries provided are correct, and again test the connection. So once it is successful, the integration is successful. So this is the change. These are the changes that needs to be performed on the ITSM side. On the DWP Catalog, you have to go to services, go to connectors, and now we'll be creating a new connector, so that way DWP Catalog will be able to integrate to the ITSM server. So click on new connection, select the connection name as remedy. You can give any name to your connection, but connector should be remedy. Click save. Now you will be able to see you have to provide this host information. So I will just provide the host information here. The ITSM port, the user, this is the ITSM user and password that we need to provide. See. So as you can see, the connection has been established, and you can see this DWP Catalog is now connected to the remedy ITSM. This concludes the demo for ITSM integration with DWP Catalog. So let's move to the FTS configuration and search cache. So basically, FTS configuration will be needed to perform the search on the AR server, on the catalog AR server basically. So as you can see, this is the server group architecture, wherein server 1 and server 2 are defined as the FTS indexer with rank 1 and 2, and server 3 and server 4 are the searcher server. So user will perform the searches through server 3, server 4, and the call will go to the indexer servers, and that will use the FTS plugin searcher to bring up all the results as a part of FTS. So this server 1 and server 2 will have its own FTS indexed database, and it will have its own collection directory, which will be used to pull the results for the searched item. So the concept here remains the same as in AR server, and you can perform the integration or FTS configuration by going into the FTS forms by logging into the catalog AR server. So let's have a look at the high availability configuration. So there are some considerations that needs to be done for the high availability configuration. You have to make sure that all the servers in the server group are able to access each other. So just make sure the connectivity is established between all the servers. You may need to add the host entries into the DWP catalog servers to make sure that there are no connection issues between the servers that are configured for high availability or server group. Then we have to make sure that all the individual catalog servers are configured in a cluster. You can check the ar.configuration file on all the catalog servers and make sure that the server group is true, and all the server entries are present into those ar.conf files, along with the primary and secondary servers. Then we have to define the cluster ranking from each server. So we have a form, like in AR server it is AR system server group operation ranking. So just go to that form, just make sure that for each operations or process we have rankings defined, so that in case of failure the next ranking server will take that particular operation, and it will not impact any functionality. Next thing is you can configure the load balancer to distribute the request. Make sure that the load balance, this is to ensure that the load is divided into all the servers equally, so that it will share the same load. So these all steps are the same as the AR server. You have to do those configurations as a part of server group. Then the last one will be to enable the FTS for high availability. So for FTS, we can just check the FTS configuration. We can define the indexer server and searcher server in the FTS tab, FTS forms. You can also check the server group server administration form to check the FTS configurations for that. And once you have the FTS configuration, make sure that you are able to perform the re-indexing part, and if the FTS indexes are getting generated or not. So the concept remains the same. It will go to the FTS pending table, and then it will create the collection directory, and the records will be FTS index. Okay, so once we have set up a complete servers, like as of now we have seen that we have seen the installation of a single server, and then the post-install configuration, then a server group. Now comes the upgrade process. So the upgrade process is fairly simple here. To upgrade the DWP catalog, you have to start with the primary. So just download the upgrade installer from the EPT site before you and extract the tar file. So it's the same as the installation. The only difference is it will have that upgrade. The name will be different, and just download it and store it into a particular file. You have to extract the same installer again as we did for the installation. Before upgrade, you have to back up the database, file system, and create a snapshot of all servers in case if anything goes wrong. You can just revert those changes. And then again, you have to create a options.txt file as a part of prerequisite. So now you will be able to see there will be options.txt file with the upgrade installer as well. Just update the options.txt file with all the relevant information and run the upgrade script and specify the location of the installation options file. So the command to run this is upgrade digitalworkplace.sh-options.txt. And you can see the progress of the upgrade onto the same UI, and just check for any errors in the logs, and once the upgrade is successful, you will be able to see the successful installation message. So the primary upgrade server is done. Now if you want to upgrade the secondary servers in the cluster, the configuration remains the same, so no need to configure modify any configuration on the secondary server. Just perform the same steps like download the upgrade installer, create the options.txt file, and perform the secondary server installation. One thing you need to make sure that the BMC DWP server role parameter should be slave in the options.txt, so that it will understand that this is the secondary server in the server group. Once you update the options.txt, run the upgrade once again with the command upgrade digitalworkplace.sh options.txt, and you will be able to see the progress on the UI. Just check the successful installation message. If there are any errors, you can just check that and perform the upgrade again. Over to you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ashish. So now I will show you how to integrate DWP Catalog with RSSO. So the first thing we need to do is prepare the DWP Catalog AR server for single sign-on. After that, we need to configure the RSSO admin console for DWP Catalog integration. Once that is done, we need to run the RSSO configuration script on the DWP Catalog servers. And right after that, we need to update the RSSO configuration across environment. So that means adding the ignore tenant domain to mid-tier DWP and Smarty. We need to repeat all of the above on the other servers. Please note that DWP Catalog requires RSSO integration in order to work, so have that in mind. In this video, I will show you how to integrate DWP Catalog with RSSO. So the first thing you want to do is go to the DWP Catalog mid-tier, log in as demo, go to Quick Links, and then go to AR System Administration Console. Then go to Common Server Configuration, General, Centralized Configuration. Select the last option from the menu, which is RC Server Shared. Then check the crossref blank password value to true, and do the same for disable new RLS implementation. Check that you have the authentication chaining mode set to number 2. If it's not present, add it yourself. Click apply, close, go to server information, then go to the EA tab, confirm that you have the same port that you had on the other form. Check that these two boxes are checked and that you have the authentication chaining mode set to area-ARS. Click apply, okay. After that, you need to log on to the RSSO admin console, which is here. Then go to General, Basic, check do you have a cookie domain set. Then go to Advanced, check that you have the service URL defined under the back channel option. So in here, just note that I have an alias for the RSSO server, but then I'm using the actual fully qualified name, not the alias. So after that is set, go to realm, click on the domain that has, well, the realm that has the star domain. Click on the pencil. Make sure that you have the tenant defined. This is the one that you created while running the post install script. It can be, it cannot be the same as the one that you, as the network domain that you have. It can be different as well, so it doesn't really matter. Just make sure that you have the right one. So go authentication, then add authentication, then add your server details, the remedy one, the ITSM one. With the details here, click on test, make sure that it returns this message. The user ID transformation should be set to none. And you can have chaining mode, you can have SAML Kerberos and other authentication methods. Just make sure that the login IDs and the user ID transformation is properly set. Once that is done, save, close, and go to the catalog server. So in the catalog server, we have a script to configure the RSSO integration. So I already did this on my own, so I'm just gonna pull the values that I need for the script. And the script is located under DWP CSV configure RSSO, right? Through this screen. So now I'm just going to run the script on my own. So one thing to note is that the agent ID that I have here should be the same that I have in DWP. I'm using the external URL and it's running over SSL. It can be non-SSL as well. As you can see, I have SSL for the external and non-SSL for the internal. This is a tenant that I have created before with the post tenant. And as you can see, it's not the same as my network domain. So it can be different. It can be the same. It doesn't really matter. I have a demo, password, video, and admin, serverservices.com. So if everything is alright, I should be able to see this message. Okay, so it's good to go. I just need to restart the catalog, and then after this is done, I'll just check that the RSS integration is working fine. Another thing you need to note is that you need to configure the other applications so they can work with this authentication method. So while this is coming up, I will just go back to the DWP server and take note of this. So we have this file under kernel.conf, the sso-sdk.properties, and you need to add this value ignore-tenant equals true, and and restart the DWP Tomcat. You need to do the same for the Smart IT. It's to have the exact same value, and file is under the same directory. So as you can see, I have the ignore tenant equals true, and the last one would be the mid-tier server. So for mid-tier, I just need to update some other files as well. So just going to apps BMC arrays. So I had to create this directory under the mid-tier installation directory, and under this directory I have this file which is called RSSO-authenticator.properties. On this file I have the ignore tenant equal value set to true. Then I need to go back to webinf classes, and then I have these config.properties. Just gonna open this up, and in here I need to add the RSSO values as well. So I think this would be easier to see. Okay, so make sure you have these two lines. ARSystem.authenticator equals this value, and that you also have this, so that you need to change this manually. You need to add, and actually you have to add this line yourself, and you need to change this value yourself as well. And once that is done, save it and restart the mid-tier server. So once that is done, okay, we can go check the RSS integration in the GUI. So the server is back online. You can see the DWP Catalog server is up and running. So I'm just going to try to log onto the catalog. So I should be getting this login page, should be able to log in. Okay, let me clear the cookies first. So you can see I'm in, and I should be able to hit the Smart IT server and the DWP server and the ITSM server, and I should not be getting the login page because I'm already logged in. So that's it. Thank you for watching. So now I will show you how to integrate DWP Catalog with SSL. So we use SSL to secure the communication between DWP Catalog and the other applications. So BMC recommends offloading SSL on the load balancer and using CA certificates over self-signed certificates. In order to create a certificate and enable SSL on the catalog server, we need to create a self-signed certificate with our server details, such as hostname, fully qualified name, IP address. Next, we need to create a signature request having this same information that I just mentioned. Send this to the CA provider, have the CA provider sign this request, and then the CA provider will provide you with the signature chain and a root certificate. That root certificate needs to be installed on the catalog trust store, and the signature chain should be used to sign the key store that we created on the first step. Moving forward, we need to edit these files. We have the jetty-stp.xml on which we have to add the key store, trust store path, and password. On the set environment sh, we need to change the local host to the host name, and and to the fully qualified, and we also need to define the SSL port. We need to do the same on the set script variables script, and we also need to update two config files, which are the monitor.properties and the ar.conf. So I will show you how to do that in a minute. Just have in mind that we need to repeat all the steps in the other members, the cluster members, that we need to edit the user group sync, and that we need to update the endpoints, such as DWP Advanced, SmartT, and ITSM. I'll show you that in a minute.
I will demo SSL integration. The first thing we need to make sure of is that we have a CA cert under the catalog server. Then we will need to edit these config files. Please edit the monitor.properties the same way I did. I enable the HTTPS protocol and enable the 443 port. The next file is the ar.conf, and I need to update the Jetty options on it and update the protocol to HTTPS and the port to 443. The next file is the jetty-http.xml. Just one thing to note is that root can only use ports lower than 1000. So 443 is reserved to root users. So if you're a non-root user, use 8443. Back to jetty-http.xml. Please make sure to uncomment the SSL portion just as I did, and to put your key store and trust stored paths on this section. Please put the right password in, and also make sure to put the right port. In our case, I am using the port 443, so I'll update that section as needed. Once this is done, we will need to run a script to enable insecure sessions on the server. So we need to run the post install script and enable the insecure sessions. That's for self-signed certificates, but we need it. Okay. Once this is done, we will need to edit two additional files, which is the set environment and the set local script variables. So make sure to edit this file the same way as I did, updating the protocol, port, and server name. Same for the set script variables. So it is very important to use hostname where the hostname is required and fully qualified where fully qualified is required. As you can see, I updated the protocol, the port, and the hostname and added these two lines here. Please make sure to do the same. Once this is done, save it, close it, and now we can update the user group sync script or restart the catalog. So I'm going to restart the catalog first. And now I'm going to update the user group sync. So for that, I'm going to open this script and make sure you do the same in your server. So update the trust store and the password, those two lines. Once that is done, you can open your cron tab and edit your cron job and add the SV protocol for HTTPS and save it. So that way you should be able to run the user group sync with no issues. Okay, once this is done, we can go back to the browser and hit the DWP Catalog URL. So we should be getting the login page, and if you can see, I get the path log on the URL, and the certificate is valid. So the last step would be updating the application's endpoints. Update the DWP Catalog URL to HTTPS and make sure that you have the root certificate installed on those servers as well. Here concludes my demo.
So if you go to BMC docs and do a search on DWP Advanced 2002, you should be able to see the troubleshooting section on your left. We have several troubleshooting guides for SSL, RSSO, SmartIT, and other components. We wrote these guides based on the cases that we usually get, and we thought it would be a nice way to provide end customers with an appropriate tool to troubleshoot this on their own. So moving forward, we have several troubleshooting scenarios. We have this installation error. The first thing we need to do is we need to check the installation log and the application logs under the DB folder. And the installation log is under the temp directory. In there, we can see the root cause of the issue. It's most likely to be a Java or a port blocked issue. So what we recommend is dropping the table spaces in the database, recreate them, make sure they have the right permissions, and rerun this run the uninstaller and rerun the installation. So that is the right way to reinstall the product or start over whenever it fails. And if you don't find the root cause, if you still have the issues, please submit the logs to the BMC support portal. There's another common issue that server gets stuck on the restart. That can be during the installation or the post-installation, right? When running the create tenant. So this could be related to file permissions and could be package deployment error. So for this, we recommend restarting the error system within the DWP Catalog server. And we have a knowledge article on that you can follow. Next topic is unable to locate DWP Catalog services within DWP. So this can have several root causes. So what we usually do is we check the FTS configuration, configure it if it's not present. Then we reindex the server and run the source cache on demand. So there are two ways to do it. I'm going to demo one, and the other one is documented on that knowledge article. Watch this tutorial on how to troubleshoot the FTS issues.
I will demo FTS troubleshooting. As you can see, I cannot see any DWP service in DWP. So for this, I'm going to check the DWP Catalog FTS configuration files. I will start with plugin svr config.xml and check the AR monitor path first. So as you can see, I have the fully qualified name and I should have the host name. So I'm removing the domain from it. Save it. Now I need to make sure that the plugin is not commented out on the armonitor.conf, which is, so I'm going to remove the hashtag from it. We'll save this file, and now I need to restart the DWP Catalog server. The next thing I have to check is the DWP Catalog AR server configuration. I'm logging as demo, and I need to go to the AR System Administration Console, Common Server Configuration, General, and FTS configuration. Make sure that you have the FTS agent checked and server configuration set to single server or server group indexer. If you do any changes, please restart the catalog server. Now, I will log in as HANA admin and run the FTS reindex. So for this, I need to go to AR System Administration Console, go to Tenant Server Configuration, General, Server Information, and click on the FTS tab. click on Reindex, then hit Apply. Make sure that you run this on non-business hours. The next thing I have to do is I need to go to DWP Catalog Admin Console, click on the gear icon, go to Application Cache, Reset Service Cache. This will take a while, so please perform this on non-business hours. Now, you just need to make sure that the DWP Enhanced Catalog URL is right under DWP Admin Console, and make sure I get a green banner. So now I should be able to see the DWPC services on DWP. So I'm refreshing my screen, and as you can see, now I can see all the DWP services in DWP. This is where my demo concludes.
So another common issue is RSSO integration not working, and you're getting double login page, or you're not able to see the login page at all. So there are many root causes. The first one would be that the RSSO admin console is not configured for the DWP integration. So what you need to do is check that the back channel is defined, the back channel URL, and the tenant is also defined for the realm that you're using for the catalog. The other thing is that the DWP catalog server is not able to reach the RSSO server, and they're not in the same version. So we have a troubleshooting guide on how to troubleshoot these issues in depth, but you can watch this video and start troubleshooting these on your own.
I will demo RSSO troubleshooting. So I have an issue here that I cannot access DWP Catalog via RSSO. So the first thing we need to check is the RSSO agent.log in the DWP Catalog server. So as you can see, there is an error, which is saying that we don't have the right version. We cannot reach the server. So for that, the first thing we are going to do is we're going to check that we have the RSSO configuration files in the right place. So I'm looking for the RSSO agent.properties, the RSSO agent OSGI, and for the SL4J, which I do have in the right directories. So in the troubleshooting documentation, we have the list of files that need to be checked and their directory. So as we can see, that is not the issue that we are having. So the next test would be checking if I'm able to reach that RSSO URL, and I cannot reach that URL. Let me try the SSL one, and again, I'm not able to reach it. So what I'm doing now, I'm checking if the RSSO server is up and running, which is up and running. So I will try to hit the server from the catalog server. So for this, I'm using the same command, which is curl-vk, and I'm able to hit it. So there's no communication issue between DWP Catalog and RSSO server. Okay. So I'm going back to the RSSO admin console, check that I have the cookie domain set, I have the service URL set on the back channel. So I'm copying that URL and going back to the catalog and see if I'm able to hit it. So I'm using the curl command again, and let's see what we get. So yep, I'm able to hit the server, so this is good. Okay, let me check the realm configuration. Click on the pencil, and I do have a tenant set, which is the one that I created. on DWP Catalog, and I also have the AR server authentication set. And that is working. So the next step would be checking the RSSO agent.properties and see what URL I have here. So I can see that I have a mistake here. The port is wrong. So let me update the port for both URLs, for internal and external. Okay, let me save that. And let me check the log once again. So if I scroll down, I should be okay. Yep, it is now talking to the server. The server was wrong on the properties file. So after updating the port, DWPC and RSSO servers started talking to each other, and you can see that the communication is successful. So the next step would be restarting the DWP Catalog server. Once it is up and running, let's try hitting the catalog server again. Okay, I'm getting the RSSO login page, and I'm able to log on to the catalog server. Let's switch to DWP and see if it works as well. As you can see, I'm able to reach the DWP server from here as well. Here concludes my demo.
Another common issue is that you're getting the PKIX error while configuring the catalog in the admin console or any other endpoint. So this is typically an issue that has to do with the root certificate not present on the endpoint server, or that you're using a DNS entry that cannot be resolved by the other server, or that the DNS entry that you are using was not defined in the key store while creating the certificate or while signing the certificate. So the first thing you need to do is confirm that the root certificate is installed and that you have all the DNS entries. You can make use of that troubleshooting guide to pull the commands that you need to use to check that if the certificate has all the DNS entries, or if they don't have it, you need to recreate the certificate. So if you fix that, you need to restart the server and then check again if you're able to communicate. If not, you can raise a support case. The other issue that we usually get is that Smart IT agents are not able to see the DWP catalog requests. So for this, you need to make sure that the catalog is configured for Smart IT. For that, you can see this knowledge article and confirm that you have the SBE integration enabled on ITSM.
These are some helpful references based on the topics we discussed and will be available when we post this webinar. You have the DWP Advanced 22 documentation, the best practices, the troubleshooting guides, the knowledge articles that we use on this webinar, and other helpful links. During this webinar, we covered the installation and upgrade process, the post-installation configuration steps, integrating DWP Catalog with RSSO and SSL, and the troubleshooting section. We hope that this has been helpful. This concludes our presentation. Back to you, Greg.
Thank you, Daniel. And now I'll take us through the self-help in contacting BMC, the YouTube channel where this webinar will be placed a week from today's broadcast, as well as a rich set of how-to videos. Also, the Connect with BMC Helix ITSM and Remedy webinar schedule is available at this community's link that has future webinars as well as past webinars that we've delivered. Also, the Hot Off the Press newsletter that has a rich set of trending information is available at this link. To contact technical support via web, phone, email, or these social channels are available here. Thank you for attending this webinar.